I am going to call the Tuesday, July the 9th, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask for any disqualifications on the one case we have in front of us tonight. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. We have a quorum, 7 out of 7. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for July 9th, 2024.
We have a motion for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Okay, moving on to number 5, approval of our minutes from the June 11th, 2024 meeting. Everyone's had a chance to glance at those. And if there's no changes, I'm going to entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 11th.
All right.
2024.
We got a motion for approval of our minutes. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed likewise. All right, seeing no old business, we're going to move on to new business. First and only case for this evening, Planning Board 2418 Currituck County Text Amendment. Request for an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 5, Design Standards, to amend the multifamily design standard to reduce the setback from 100 feet to 80 feet for limiting multifamily building height to 2 stories adjacent to single-family detached dwelling. At this time, we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board. This is a relatively simple text amendment. As you can see here and in your agenda packet, it's just a strike through of the 100-foot setback and an underline of 80 feet, so reducing that setback from 100 to 80 feet. This is in the multifamily design standards of the ordinance. The ordinance currently does require multifamily buildings when they're adjacent to existing single-family dwellings that they must be set back currently 100 feet to go to 3 stories. So the actual setback, depending on which property line setback you would have typically from a single-family lot would be, if you were on the side, it would be probably 15 feet. On a rear, it would be 25 feet. So at 25 feet, you could still build multifamily, but you'd be limited to 2 stories. Now we say you've got to go to 100 feet to get the 3rd story, and this is just taking that 100 back to 80, so you can have 3 stories at 80 feet. Any questions on that? Kind of get what's happening?
What brought on this?
Well, if you recall, there was a recent text amendment that the board initiated for reducing the 2-foot elevation standard for multifamily buildings.
Right.
And a lot of this is really coming from a project in Corolla, the Saga project in Monterey Shores. There were some standards that the developer wanted altered, and the board actually felt compelled to change the ordinance for, and this is one of those. And what I'd like to show you is actually just marked up a site plan, and hopefully you can see this on the screen. If not, I can zoom in a little bit. But the multifamily buildings here are, I'm gonna go to the computer so I can
Yeah.
use the mouse. So the multifamily buildings are here. Okay?
Okay.
This commercial, this doesn't apply. This is a hotel, it doesn't apply. And you can see the green line, and I did that. This is approximate, it's pretty close. It's definitely not scaled, perfectly scaled, is at 100 feet. So that's the current setback for going to 3 stories. And you can see the 80-foot blue line would be the new setback for having a 3-story building. And in this particular instance, the existing single-family dwellings are here along the rear. So that rear setback line you can see right here, 25 foot. You can see it here. This is the rear setback. So you could have a building at that rear setback, 2 stories, multifamily, adjacent to single-family dwellings here. And here is where you would, with the proposed language, be able to increase up to the 3 foot. The building height standards are not different between multifamily and single family. It's still a 35-foot max building height to the mean roof. Whoops. I'm not that good at that, am I?
There.
And then I just wanted to show you, because it's really is a county-wide amendment. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Elon Vacations project in the lower end of the county, University Park,
Yeah.
where there's some commercial out front. These are those commercial lots out front. These are vacant right now. This is where you have the Elon Vacations building. These are the townhomes that were built. And so I kind of just did the same thing. So you could see on a different project, here's the property line. This dashed line is the property line. I believe there is a single-family dwelling back here. And you can see the blue line there would be an 80-foot setback, and the green would be 100 feet. These actually townhomes are only 2 stories, so the height wouldn't apply. But this just kind of shows you on a site plan the difference.
Jenny, is it just the buildings that, I mean, in other words, when they get far enough away from that point, they could actually go to 3 stories again, too, right?
Correct. That's this is the line currently, the green.
Okay.
So on this side of the line, you can go to 3 stories. On this side, you can't currently.
Okay.
This is the proposed new line, the blue. This side of the line, 3 stories. At this side, 2 stories.
Jenny,
This is not an ordinance yet. This is a proposed change to the ordinance, or is this the ordinance now?
Right, so this is a text amendment to the ordinance. We're striking through the 100 and adding 80.
Okay.
So reducing it 20 feet.
Didn't we just recently go over this where the one gentleman kind of made his case about that?
That was related to commercial,
Oh, okay, okay.
where there wasn't a standard at all for commercial. There wasn't an additional setback standard for commercial.
Okay.
So it's different.
Right.
what was that gentleman's name? That
Don Holler.
Yeah.
Mr. Holler, yeah.
Because it
And
dealt with Corolla and that proposed hotel, I believe.
Well, it's text amendments apply countywide, but the impetus for that was that project.
Right.
But, and I mentioned at the last meeting, there's a work session, there was going to be a work session scheduled with the board to discuss that text amendment separately from this.
Does this text amendment have any impact on what Mr. Holler brought in?
No, it's 2 separate sections of the ordinance.
Okay.
And his was commercial building.
His was commercial.
Commercial,
He was
yeah.
basically saying, you have a setback like this for multifamily, the commercial could be as impactful or similarly impactful. We need to do something on the commercial side.
That's gonna be a tough, how many possible homes are there in this proposed project?
It's not about a project.
not,
It's a
okay.
text amendment to the ordinance. It's right here.
Yeah.
So this has nothing to do with.
I was just showing you how setbacks apply to site plans.
Yep.
And they were townhome type or multifamily or townhome site plans.
Okay.
Yep.
So a townhouse is considered, a run of townhouses is considered multifamily.
It is.
Not just an apartment building.
Correct.
But, okay. Okay.
So I don't know, I mean, maybe just give me a little bit of feedback real quick about whether or not these site plans helped you. I mean, you think, okay. I just want to know, because if it didn't, then I won't include it in my presentation for the Board of Commissioners. But if
I
it
think-
did, then I will.
No, I think it's,
Okay.
it gives you an idea.
Okay. And then here's some goals. This is all in your agenda packet in the staff report. Some land use plan goals. Goal 2 is one that you see a lot about carefully considering design and location of potentially incompatible land uses to mitigate compatibility issues, such as scale, use, design, location. Then there's some actions related to ordinance amendments that are suggested to update the ordinance to provide incentives for development of a variety of workforce housing for mixed incomes, incentivize multi-story buildings that comply with design standards, evaluate the ordinance to address development intensity by requiring setbacks based on width, square footage, and/or height, and incentivize development of affordable workforce housing and mixed-use and multifamily developments in Corolla. And then there's some general purpose and intent statements that just speak to development quality and design quality in the ordinance, and then the purposes for multifamily design standards, which this is the section of the ordinance that's being amended, is to promote greater compatibility between multifamily and other allowable uses and establish a minimum level of quality for multifamily development. Staff suggested consistency statement is here that the text amendment is in conformance with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. It's consistent with the Imagine Currituck 2040 vision plan, including land use goal 2. And this is also in your agenda packet, and you're very familiar with these standards, the review standards that you may consider when making a recommendation whether to approve with changes, or deny the proposed text amendment. And I'd be happy to answer any more questions that you have.
A quick question about it mentions the building height to 2 stories.
Yeah.
It remains as it is, which I think is, it must not exceed a mean height of 35 feet.
Correct.
It remains exactly the same then.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
So nothing changes.
That's another key component of, 2 stories could be too tall
Right,
stories.
yeah, you have to go by the
Right.
feet, you really get,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's not limited for, now, the other text amendment that you mentioned that Mr. Holler sponsored for the commercial side actually said a setback and a height a little bit lower. I think it was 30 feet versus 35. Because 2 stories could still potentially be
okay.
35
Yeah.
feet. So.
And what's really driving this? I mean, is it to try and keep the amount of vehicles, people? I mean, what is the real driving?
What's driving the standard initially?
Yeah,
I think mainly it's probably to keep separation between the uses, for one. Multifamily buildings can have a greater scale and massing than a single-family dwelling adjacent to it, so keeping light and air and the things that people enjoy about being next to a building not being shaded, kind of compatibility.
right, okay.
But again, like Mr. Ennis said, the 2 stories doesn't necessarily limit overall height directly.
But it does.
But what it would do is density
Right,
could impact
right.
the number of units within that area between the 2. Which is back to, use compatibility.
I think Corolla's gonna turn into the duck area, so. It's with all the building that's supposed to be happening in that area, I mean, it's crazy now. These proposed projects, I don't know what it's gonna be like. I mean, I tried to even get into Winks the other day, I couldn't even get in the parking lot, it's just.
Oh, you mean traffic-wise?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's just, the traffic is just getting insane. And then as many houses that went up in the 4-wheel drive was like 10 times previous years and the permits. So I see a project like this and I cringe. I'm like, wow, it'll take forever. And the really good thing from the safety
But this,
side.
again, though, this is an amendment to the ordinance. It's not a project that you're approving. The project's.
No, I know that. I
Yeah.
understand that. But hopefully the amendment would have some reduction in the density, I don't know.
It may, or it may move the building if it's not approved.
Right.
So if there's residential, and there's no homes there, can they put that right to the back of their property line? Or is it still?
The 25, well, I mean, you're talking about the 3-story?
Yeah, or 35 feet.
Yeah, it's 35 feet regardless. It's just 2-story versus 3-story.
Okay. So, well, I guess I'm not asking it right. So there's residential lots, say a developer has residential lots there. No houses yet, but it is residential. Can the developer, because there's no existing home, and that's what it says, single family, if there's no existing, can they go further? Can they
Right.
go further from?
If there's not an existing single-family detached residential dwelling, this doesn't apply.
But it doesn't change that the setback's gonna be 80 feet no matter what, from the property line, correct?
No. It,
No, they
this
could,
does
they
not,
can go
this whole
right.
provision doesn't apply unless there's an existing house adjacent to the project.
That's interesting.
And
Is there another ordinance that protects that residential?
There's community compatibility standards that apply.
it doesn't apply to single family dwelling, it's only multifamily. Makes sense.
But,
I know what Juanita's
I'm
saying
trying
is,
to say-
is if a lot is zoned single family.
correct.
There's no
But there's
unit on
no
it, but
unit
it's zoned
there.
single family.
Does this apply? And with it saying it has to be an existing single family, then this doesn't apply.
Oh, are you
But-
referring to like a house there versus a lot?
That's what this says. There has
Versus
to
a
be.
lot. So Joe Schmo bought a lot.
Yeah.
He's not ready to build,
So if
But-
there's,
but
what would your setback be
it's a
then?
matter who gets to the base first.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Well, I mean, and we can pass it, but we can change that word.
You can recommend.
We can recommend that
Approval
it's
with-
single-family lot,
Oh, property, yeah.
single-family lots,
Yeah,
if you want.
or, yeah. you
Well, and
could.
I don't know how that is.
But I know what
kind
you're
of
saying.
Impact does that
Yep.
too. I'm just trying to say there
Yeah.
are people who buy
Yeah,
a piece of
absolutely.
property and they wait to retire to build on it, and then
And now they got this multi-family dwelling 25 feet away.
Sure.
Because this text amendment is actually increasing density, correct? In a way?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not
Okay,
necessarily.
Even though the
I mean,
setbacks
it's
are.
more about
just a
site
matter
layout.
of- yeah.
than it
Okay.
is. It could, depending on the size of your lot, the configuration of your lot, and things like that. It could indirectly.
Yeah, because
affect
anytime I hear
density.
reduced setbacks, I think of increased density. I mean, is that
Not always.
not always? Okay,
It just depends. I mean, maybe intensity.
I get you.
Dep-
Yeah,
just depends.
that's a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only thing that I'm kind of,
Yeah. I mean,
about the person who has
Right.
purchased a piece of property and is ready to, waiting to build, and
there's certainly provisions in the ordinance that are related to adjacent to a lot with an existing single-family dwelling, where the wording's a little bit different. Where, or single-family zoning district. Let me see if I can find that real quick, because I think that might be helpful if that's something that you're considering.
yeah, I mean, you don't want to build redundancy, but I don't know. It's just,
I mean, you could argue that,
something that I
that
think of.
that somebody that has a single-family lot, this would in some way decrease their value of that lot because the dwelling, the adjacent multifamily dwelling is going to be closer to them. Can be closer to them,
Well, 20 feet closer, yeah.
20 feet closer,
Yeah.
which is 20, so 20%.
And single-family lots anymore are not, they're not, an acre, 2, 3, 4 acres.
no,
Now
now
they're
acre.
smaller. So, I mean, it's just foreseeing a potential.
But I mean, we can recommend a change in the language.
I mean, right, so if
Okay.
you don't like that it says that a house has to be on a residential lot, you could potentially say adjacent to residentially zoned property,
Or how about single family?
which, and that would apply in the case where there was a dwelling on a property that was residentially zoned, but would not apply in the case where there was a dwelling on general business property, which we
Okay.
know is also allowed.
Right,
So
right.
that,
Right.
So it has to be, yeah, we would have to require that it's on a single family zoned. Or if that's.
or with
Just
just with
residential.
residential zoning.
Okay,
Residential property doesn't
Yeah,
need to
I think,
say-
because
Right.
really you're looking at the SFO district in Corolla and the SFM district on the mainland, SFI, so single-family residential district, I think would be appropriate.
to put that wording in there. Okay.
Even if it is redundant, I mean, just put it in doesn't hurt anything.
I don't think it does.
you
If what,
The
what's,
commissioners
if
can
what's
change it
redundant.
Well,
anyway.
even if you were to find something that kind of covers that, because,
What I was saying was, I was looking for an example of the language
Oh,
that's
okay.
similar for a different type of ordinance that applies adjacent to a zoning district versus having a house or not. There's lots of different parts of the ordinance that apply when you have a dwelling adjacent to a new use, or whether it's GB or multifamily. There's other sections that have additional standards for that, so.
I think you make a really good point.
No, I mean, that's, I think that can be brought up, and so we should change the wording from single-family detached dwelling. What wording would be
Single-family residential zone
single-family residential?
with an existing single-family residential zone.
You already wrote it, you get to make the motion.
No, I think that's a point that they can beat that around,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think it would be, just to make sure the wording is good, if they do go with it, it would be 80 feet, within 80 feet of a single-family or residential zoning district.
Okay.
Or
What's
just
that?
single-family residential district without an intervening public street.
Okay.
Single family or residential district.
No, single-family residential district.
Right.
Right.
All right. Any more questions for Jenny? Any discussion?
Where would you put that in this language here?
No, and I think that 80, we're agreeing to the 80-foot lot. I mean, changing it from 100 to 80. So that's still,
Yeah, we're not changing any of
Right.
that, right?
To approve it, subject to change in wording. Make a motion on what you want to put in there. Okay, hearing no discussion, I'm going to open the floor for a motion. And again, same thing, we can motion to approve, motion to deny, motion to approve, subject to some changes in the word.
I'll move to approve PB 2418, subject to a slight change in the wording. Buildings subject to the standards of this section shall have a maximum height of 2 stories within 80 feet of a lot with a single-family residential district without intervening public street. The standard shall apply regardless of any incentives, administrative adjustments, or master plan. It is, because this request is in conformance with the general purpose and the intent of the Unified Development Ordinance and is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine Currituck 2040 Vision Plan, including Land Use Goal 2.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Everybody clear on the motion? Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed likewise. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, any announcements? Ms. Jones? Anybody? Okay. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion and a second?
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.